Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another beverage chat. Let's talk about train derailments and how we are calling them accidental. Tonight I am sipping on an Odell's tree shaker. I believe they go through each season and pick a fruit to put in the IPA. So this one has tangerine. The first tree shaker I ever had peaches in it, and it's really good. I am going to talk to you today all about these derailments, what chemicals these trains are carrying, and where they're going when they are derailed and how that may affect you. First things first, hi, hello, I'm Tori. I make videos 4 to 5 times a week all about life here in Northern Colorado. I try and teach you to be prepared on a budget, and I talk to you about homesteading, motherhood, all of the things. A few things I just want to cover. Today's sponsor is Newair. They sent over one of their new refrigerator units for me to try out, a perfect spot for all of my Odell beer and other beverages. I'm going to show you a quick clip of everything that this refrigerator has to offer. This is a new model and I really love it. I'm loving the colors and the size. I've worked with Newair before. I've worked with them for a very long time. They came in clutch when I was without refrigeration for a little bit there and we didn't have it in the budget to replace it. They were kind enough to send me a refrigerator for my family and I will never forget it. They're a phenomenal company. They're American made, based in California, and they just have some awesome refrigeration products. They also have some cigar related products and they have some freezers, and sometimes they sprinkle in different products. So definitely check it out. My link is going to get you 10% off, and that's found in the description box. And then the last thing on my little housekeeping list here is going to be the Zoom call. I've talked about it in some videos before. I wanted to say thank you to everyone that signed up. The spots are filling up pretty fast. We're about halfway enrolled, and I would love it if you sat on that call with me. A lot of people are asking why they need to sit on a Zoom to learn about this company. It's just an easier way for us to present the store, give you a tour of the store and how you order and things of that nature. Because we are talking to such a large audience, it's a little tricky for me to connect with you each individually. I would absolutely love to do that, but a Zoom call is the best way to do that. And I love the face-to-face connection. That's how this company does business, and that's how I do business. So if you want to sign up for the Zoom call, it's going to be amazing. I'm so excited for it. I can't wait to learn along with you. Again, I'm rather new to this company, but I've been using their products in my home for months now. I just stand by them. They're great products, American made, non-toxic, and they have just about everything. So this is a great way to just get rid of those big box corporations, and it can also be a reliable source of income if you want to take that route, but you don't have to. So the Zoom link will be in the pinned comments below in the description box as well. If you're watching on your television and want the Zoom link, just email me at mountainmammaliving@gmail.com and I will send it over to you. There's no obligation. This is just an easy way for you to see the store and for you to see how it works. All right, so let's get into train derailments. So the first time I really heard about this was the one in East Palestine, Ohio. I believe they are still evacuated. They were trying to get a chemical out of the water, and I have my computer here. That's what I'm looking at. I'm just looking up, just like you can do at home. That's why I kind of want to associate this with you. You can do exactly what I'm doing. I'm just Googling and finding articles that align with my values and morals and things that I can trust. You hear me shout out a news source that doesn't really align with your beliefs. I want you to take that with a grain of salt because some of these titles are a bit laughable, and I wanted to bring that into this conversation. The topics that we're talking about are very serious, but I have a positive, lighthearted approach. We like to do this open-minded. I'm not taking a side. I am just finding information and letting you know that information. So cheers, let's get into it. Okay, all I did was go into Google and type in recent trail derailments, and the first one that pops up is Friday, February 3rd, 2023, and that was the Ohio train derailment. I know for a fact that is not the most recent train derailment, so Google has failed us once again, but let's go down here. How many train derailments in 2023? How many trains have derailed so far? As of October, the FRA has recorded 742 incident reports for train derailments in 2023. Additionally, railroads reported 59 collisions, 12 fires, and 138 highway rail crossing incidents. And that's a thing. My husband sees that kind of thing all the time. And that is from usafacts.org. Next article is from CBS News, and it just says recent train derailments across the U.S. The last one was in Butler County, Pennsylvania, so not too far from my hometown. Actually, yeah, it is a little far, but I am looking into East Palestine. Let's just kind of talk about that, and then see what was put into the water, essentially. And then let's see what accidentally spilled into the water, and then we'll go from there. So, train derailment occurred February 3rd, 2023. The derailed train was from the company Norfolk Southern Train, and some of you may have heard of them before. They operate from Terminal Railroad Association of St. Louis Yard in Madison, Illinois. I'm not liking, this is actually essentially a Wikipedia document. So we're going to get rid of that. We're not finding information from Wikipedia, people. We're not doing that. So let's look into some more facts. Let's go on USA Facts. I don't really find that they take a side too often, but as of 2023, we talked about that. The most publicized of these happened on February 3rd. The Norfolk Southern freight train carried hazardous materials. They derailed in East Palestine. The train caught fire and sent smoke and particle matter into the air, while crash runoff contaminated nearby waterways. So they got it in the water, they got it in the air. This was an accidental derailment. It's still considered that. I believe it's still under investigation. And they issued an evacuation order for residents of the surrounding area. So that's a key point for me. When I talk about preparedness on the channel, I talk about water being the main thing you need to be preparing. And a lot of people think that's silly. They always think they're going to have running water. I don't know what this trust in our water system is, but our tap water has been contaminated from the get-go. They have heavy amounts of fluoride in our water. And I don't know if you know this, but heavy amounts of fluoride and low IQ scores go hand in hand. And there are a lot of cities that have higher concentrations of fluoride in their water. So we need to think about that before you are going and drinking a big glass of tap water. Just find some sort of filter to get that out, a reverse osmosis system, something. Honestly, anything would work, but anything is better than what they're doing now. But back to the derailment. In the event of an emergency and you had to evacuate, you would have to figure out a way to take water with you. That's why I always say to keep that water next to your bug out bag and have enough for 72 hours for however many people in your family. And I believe you should have about a gallon or two a day per person. And I say that because people use it as drinking water, but they also use it to cook and things like that. And don't think that you can just go evacuate your town and go over to another town. I mean, you'd have to go pretty far for you or your family to get your next water or food source. And I'm not saying that if there was a derailment, the apocalypse is going to happen. It's just going to be a desolate wasteland. But you got to keep that kind of thing in the back of your head. If the water is contaminated and the air is contaminated, how are you going to keep those toxins out of your system? I always suggest having masks on hand for your prepper pantry in the event of that kind of emergency. But that's a story for another day. So this article says, less than a month later, a bipartisan coalition of U.S. senators introduced the Railway Safety Act of 2023, and if it passes, which it hasn't yet, the law would increase safety requirements for freight trains, especially those carrying hazardous materials. It would also increase penalties for rail companies over safety violations and provide additional funding for first responders in need of additional safety equipment. I have someone close to me that works in the family, and he is able to carry hazardous materials on his truck, and I know the clearances he had to go through all of that. So a lot of people questioned the conductor and the crew on board and wondered if that had something to do with it. I honestly don't think that is true. I think he was just another innocent bystander. One more paragraph. The bill was approved by the Senate Commerce Committee in May and is headed for a vote on the Senate floor. So that's good. It's moving. The bill's sponsors, including Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, a Democrat, and J.D. Vance, a Republican. Of course, they have to add in their political stance. Hope that additional scrutiny will prevent future train derailment disasters like this one in East Palestine. And then, yeah, we talked about how many have derailed, how many trains derail in the U.S. each year. About 9,400, but let's talk about what that train was carrying. Okay, the 38 derailed train cars were carrying substances including vinyl chloride. You can laugh with me at my pronunciations of these. I know a lot of you like to correct me, but it's like a super annoying thing to do, so just laugh at me in the comfort of your own home and don't embarrass me in the comments. Anyways, vinyl chloride, that's a big one. The butyl, acrylate, ethanol, glycol, monobutyl. Is that how you say that? Butyl? I don't know. Either. And then ethyl hexyl acrylite, and isobutylene. I don't know. I think I did pretty good there. Those were tough. All materials that are widely considered to be toxic and that could have damaging effects to both humans and the environment. And that was something I was going to touch on. They found so many dead cattle and horses, pet dogs, which is terrible. But a lot of people lost their livelihood because a lot of farms in that area had livestock. So that's something to think about. Next, we are looking up, let's just look up vinyl chloride, what that could do to a human body. And I really want to do this. I really just want to pick up a box of your basic Cheerios or whatever, basic Kraft macaroni and cheese, something processed. And I want to go through the ingredients list with you and tell you why they're bad, because I've had a lot of pushback about that they've eaten it their whole life and they turned out fine. Things are different. It's 2023. It drives me nuts when people say that they ate it, back in the 40s and they're fine. Well, yeah, it's a completely different time. There were greedy government people back then, but now it's even worse. And they've gotten people under their wing in their claws. So that can't be an argument anymore, but let me know if you want to see a video like that. I think I could put it in a organic versus non-organic foods video and then just work it in with that. So let me know if you want to tackle ingredients with me. Okay, so vinyl chloride is a colorless, flammable gas that evaporates very quickly. It's used to make polyvinyl chloride PVC pipes, wire coatings, vehicle upholstery, and plastic kitchenware. Is vinyl chloride toxic to humans? Vinyl chloride can irritate the eyes, mucous membranes, and respiratory tract. Escaping compressed gas or liquid can cause frostbite or irritation of the skin and eyes. Chronic exposure can cause permanent liver injury and liver cancer, neurologic or behavioral symptoms, and changes to the skin. Now, I'm going to say something a little personal here. I have not talked about my daughter's story, and maybe someday I will, just to raise awareness, but my daughter was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré when she was 1 year old. Vinyl chloride exposure can mimic some of the symptoms that Guillain-Barré gave to my daughter. And of course, every case is different, but I was talking to the infectious disease doctor and she gave me a lot of information. That's really what started my deep dive into the poisons that they are feeding to us. So yes, that was my little side note, personal story. Again, I might go into it someday about everything that we went through, but it's still emotional for me to talk about. So I don't know if I can get through that video without crying. And I know a lot of you aren't really here for that kind of content. So yes, let's go for a different chemical that train was carrying, one that I can pronounce. Let's go with ethylene glycol monobutyl ether. It says, is the ethylene glycol harmful? And chronic issues are nose and throat irritation with coughing, nausea, vomiting, headache, dizziness, cancer in the liver in animals and people, flush eyes with large amounts of water for at least 15 minutes, quickly remove contaminated clothing and wash contaminated skin with large amounts of soap and water. Now let's see what this chemical is in. So some of the products that this chemical is in are common glass cleaners, carpet cleaners, floor cleaners, and oven cleaners. And I know I'm going to get the argument that they are in such small dosages it cannot affect us. But how many of you use all of those products about once a month? I know I do. So here's my plug-in. A way to switch away from those kind of things is to sign up for my Zoom link so you can find out more about this amazing store. Let's see. Yes, it's mainly moved as spot removers, but it's also in a lot of cosmetics. So ladies, if you're wearing makeup, I love me some makeup and I am a sucker for cheap makeup that works well and lasts a long time. So I'm assuming it is in here as well. What's another name for butyl glycol ether? BG2 glycol monobutyl ether, butyl cellulose. But anyways, chemical compound. It's a clear, colorless, oily liquid with a unique, sweet yet mild odor and has the formula C6H14O2. Does Windex have glycol ethers? Why, yes, it does. All right, moving on to the next chemical. I'm assuming you are seeing where I'm going with this. We are going to do one more chemical and I'm going to show you what it's in and what it can do to yourself if you are exposed to it. So the last one I'm going to go over is isobutylene. What does butylene do to the body? The substance can be absorbed into the body by inhaling it. The rapid evaporation of the liquid may cause frostbite. The substance may cause effects on the central nervous system, and exposure at high levels could cause unconsciousness. And I wanted to bring this up because we were finding a lot of animals around the scene and they had passed away, but as days went by, they were seeing frostbite in some of them. So I wanted to bring that up. A lot of the families were evacuated pretty quickly, but when we were talking about these chemicals being in our everyday products, that's a problem. But when this train derailed, it spewed mass amounts of these chemical compounds, of these hazardous materials into the water and the air. So it kind of got a double whammy. And when those chemicals hit that water and hit the air, they had different effects. So yes, I'm looking up, are these chemicals toxic to humans? And the exposure to high concentrations can cause dizziness, lightheadedness, again, cancer of the liver, unconsciousness, and even death or coma. I unfortunately watched my 1-year-old daughter be put into a medically induced coma because of exposure to some sort of chemical that we put into her system because we just didn't have all of the information. And it was awful, and I don't think anyone can ever truly recover from seeing that, but a lot of these families are seeing that now. Which leads me to my next point. Are there any lawsuits going on? And that's what we're going to talk about. So the big one that you're going to see is the railroad industry sues to block limit on crew sizes that Ohio imposed after East Palestine and the derailment. The railroad industry has sued to block a new minimum crew size requirement that Ohio imposed after a fiery train derailment in East Palestine in February. So that's the big one you're going to see, but I wanted to see if there was any personal lawsuits with family that had been exposed to those chemicals. So the residents actually started filing lawsuits February 18th, so about 2 weeks after the incident, and there's plenty of footage on here about the cleanup, which is pretty upsetting, but some of the citizens report seeing strange behavior in their children, constant migraines, constant nausea, liver issues. And this man says the fish are dying and the animals are dying. He can barely talk and his chest hurts. Back in February, this was one of 10 class action lawsuits, but I'm sure there has been more. And I just wanted to wrap up the Ohio incident because it was from so long ago. I try and stay up on current news, but it's a little tricky. So let's move on to some train derailments that have been happening here and now. A few months ago, my husband and I were out on a drive with the kids. My son loves Army trucks, and when we went past our railroad tracks, we saw a slew, miles and miles of these Army trucks, and they were headed south. We assumed that they were headed to the border for extra help down there because it's out of control and there are so many issues there. We took photos and videos of it. My son thought they were so awesome. I even saw some influencers that lived in Colorado Springs post about it, and I didn't think anything of it. The next day when we woke up, that entire train derailed and they lost thousands of those Army vehicles that were going to the border, and it made us think, was that an accident? Were they carrying hazardous materials, which they weren't? But you know, it has me thinking. So let's move on to the next train derailment, which was in Kentucky, and that was a few weeks ago. I also wanted to say, let me know if any of you have been affected by any of these derailments. It's kind of terrifying to think about any of you getting hurt, but you are in my prayers if it affected you in any way. So Kentucky train derailment. Okay, so train derailment, chemical spill disrupts Thanksgiving for Kentucky town. A train derailment that spilled molten sulfur into a remote area of eastern Kentucky on the eve of Thanksgiving disrupted holiday plans for local residents on Thursday, some of whom were forced to evacuate after the incident. The derailment occurred north of Livingston in a town of about 200 people and involved 16 cars, including 2 carrying molten sulfur that spilled some of their load. Railroad operators said in a statement that the fire from the spilled sulfur had been extinguished. So let's look up molten sulfur quick and how that could affect you. Molten sulfur can cause thermal burns. Molten sulfur may evolve hydrogen sulfide, toxic gas, which may accumulate in storage container vapor spaces. So high concentrations may cause immediate unconsciousness. Death may result unless victim is promptly and successfully resuscitated. So let's see if there was any deaths. I don't know if there was. They claim that a failed wheel bearing caused the train derailment. And it's odd because I am putting in Kentucky train derailment deaths and there is nothing on it. Yeah, I'm seeing no information about death. Maybe someone knows a little bit about that and can talk to us in the comments, but immediately the EPA was on site. Their coordinator, Matthew Hooser, told reports on Thursday the derailment caused increased levels in the immediate area, but those levels have decreased as the fire is being extinguished, which would make sense. But they are saying, yeah, that wheel bearing was to blame for that. They actually did not provide sulfur dioxide levels measured overnight, but said the goal is to reach levels of 0. But something that these 2 derailments have in common is our great president didn't even bother to go visit those towns. I believe he went after the fact in Ohio, but there was no money being sent to those residents that had to evacuate, and there was no money being sent to Kentucky. I have a huge issue with that. We are not taking care of the American people. I think we can all see that. Our money is being sent other ways, and it's going into pockets that don't really need any more. So these derailments have me fired up. They have me a little angry, and I want to know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm going to wrap it up here because we're getting a little lengthy on this video. Again, I want to know your thoughts on this. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know if you've read any threads that are different from what I've read. If you want to switch away all of those toxic products you may have in your home and support an American-made, family-owned company, definitely find that Zoom link in the comments down below. As always, stay adventurous, stay creative. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye, y'all.